Hey, it feels different, right?
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Fantasy Sports. Today I'm going to be getting into some more football. Last week I was able to cover some of the NBA, but today I want to focus on the NFL and the major awards. Obviously, with the race coming down to the final, couple weeks, it doesn't seem like odds will really change in a majority of these, other than maybe MVP and maybe Defensive Player of the Year. But right now, I feel like it's the best time to focus on that because next week it'll be easier to focus on whether or not teams are making the playoffs and so on and so forth. But I really did want to get into the major awards of the year. Starting with, I want to talk about a little bit of the past week, what went on. Obviously, the Steelers won, wearing a nice Batman Steelers shirt to represent the Steelers win over the Bengals 34-11. Mason Rudolph came out. George Pickens came out, really showed off. I think the Bengals just, I don't really know, man. Obviously, Jamar Chase didn't play, but they didn't look good. The defense didn't look good. Defenses looked good more than not this year, and Mason Rudolph really made some big plays. Obviously, George Pickens made the biggest plays. He had a 75-yard touchdown and a 78-yard touchdown and the 60-yard catch up the left side. He had a big game, but focusing on something other than the Steelers, there was 2 records set this week. One by Jalen Hurts, 15 rushing touchdowns against the Giants. That's the most all-time by any quarterback, and you could argue that the tush push or the brotherly shove is a big reason for that. Obviously, getting down to the one a lot. DeAndre Swift probably would love to have a couple of those touchdowns, but they're just so efficient. I'm pretty sure they are 33 for 34 at this point with quarterback sneaks or the brotherly shove, and he set that record on Sunday or on Monday. And then obviously the Amari Cooper, Joe Flacco game. Joe Flacco comes back off the bench. Pretty much not playing a single snap this year. He played last year. They call him up, and he's been playing absolutely exceptional, regardless of the turnovers. He's winning, and he looks really, really good. He set a record with 265 yards for the most yards in a game as a Cleveland Brown wide receiver. Absolutely phenomenal game against the Houston Texans. I think the best thing to say about Joe Flacco at this point is that team needed someone who could just throw the ball. I know their defense is one of, if not the best defenses right now. I would say the Ravens are the best defense in the 49ers and then them. But with that being said, other than the, records that were set this week, I do really want to focus on the major awards. And I want to talk about the first and most important one, which is the MVP. I think up to this point, it was pretty much a race that just keeps changing. At one point, it was Tua. At one point, it was Jalen, and then it went to I went to Dak, and then it went to Brock Purdy. Now it's all kind of all over the place. It was Lamar at one point. I think at this point, with the way that the league is gone, I think Lamar is the front runner, and I think Lamar will win MVP. I think Lamar deserves MVP. I don't know if he'll win it, but I do think Lamar deserves MVP. And I think the close second is Tua, and then Jalen Hurts. At this point, I think Jalen Hurts, I think if Jalen Hurts had another win under his belt, if he didn't lose 3 straight, if maybe they had taken a win in one of those games, he'd be looking a lot stronger right now, just with 35 total touchdowns, setting the record. The way he's played on offense, especially with how bad the defense has been, and I want to get into that. But I think right now it's Lamar. Team record, leads the league in team record. One of the best quarterbacks when it comes to rushing. Other than the fact that he doesn't have a lot of touchdowns, he's probably the best rushing quarterback right now. Tua is a absolute demon when it comes to what he leads the league in overall statistics in passing. He leads the league. I'm pretty sure he's second in quarterback rating. He does lead the league in passing yards up to this point, expected yards per play, expected yards per game, all those major stats. But I think one thing to focus on with all this is the teams. I think a big thing is the race is so close this year that you have to take a look at the EPA, which is expected points per game based on, defense and offense. And I think this is why I think Lamar deserves it, obviously, because I'm a huge Lamar fan, and he has the best team in the NFL right now, and he's been playing exceptional. But I think Jalen Hurts and Tua, I think if Lamar comes out and beats the Dolphins and he beats them by a margin that even if it's not a margin, but he comes out, he performs very well, and he beats them. I think Lamar at that point would probably have to be the MVP, regardless of what happens. But I do think it's Lamar 2 or Jalen. I think it's Jalen's to maybe take. I don't know how they're going to wind up factoring in a lot of this stuff based on stats, based on team, based on success. I think if Lamar wins, it'll be overall team success. He'll pretty much have the best team in the NFL. He will also have one of the best stats in the NFL, or some of the best stats in the NFL. And I don't think that it's really his to lose at that point. I think it's more or less someone else's to win. But let's go into it player by player. I'm going to focus on those three. At this point, I think Brock Purdy. I do think Brock Purdy. Let me just talk about the EPA. The EPA is expected points, and offense and defense, special teams, and how they're compared. The 49ers offense EPA is 124.7 compared to their defense's 52.3. Their 52.3 on defense is the third lowest amongst all MVP candidates, which I don't know if that really shows a great stat in terms of what they're supposed to be doing, but it shows how good the 49ers offense is. Obviously, the 49ers defense is really good, but the 49ers offense runs mainly through, obviously, Brock Purdy has had an exceptional year, but Christian McCaffrey with 20 touchdowns, 2,000 scrimmage yards is almost, and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk combining for another 2,000 yards and 8+ touchdowns. That's mainly why the EPA is so high for them, alongside the fact that they have pretty much had a multiple score game multiple times this season, with teams like the Cardinals in their division, putting up, 40 against them and so on and so forth. It'll obviously affect the EPA, but that isn't to say that their EPA compared to a majority of the others isn't as high. The Cowboys is their second closest is 30 less. In terms of Dolphins, it's 40 less. For Jalen, it's 70 less. And then for Lamar, it is 80 less. So focusing on Lamar, the EPA for that offense is 34.1, right? And the reason I think this is such a good stat to show how good Lamar is, because their EPA is the second lowest, other than the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes isn't really a candidate at this point, but showing how their EPA is the lowest on offense, and Lamar is still putting up these numbers. And the defense for the Ravens is the highest by a significant margin for the Ravens, 138.9, which is by far, it is double any other closest. It is not close in any other one. The closest is the Cowboys at 70.2. But that doesn't really show. It shows how good the defense is, but I think it shows how prominent the offense has been with the expected points, average. Lamar has been able to go out there and win games, regardless of the defense. He has been able to put up points every single game and win them. Obviously, the defense is a big factor in that. They do have the best defense in the NFL right now. But Lamar is putting up stats that complement the defense, and he's a game changer. A big thing that came out the past week was Cam Newton saying there's a difference between being a game manager and a game changer. And I think Lamar is the biggest definition of a game changer. He's one of those players who will always extend a play. He can, move in the pocket. He can make those sidearm throws. He's the best scrambler in the league. And I think that's a majority of the reason why that offense has been able to function and flow as well as it has with the defense. You look at the Ravens, and they're a team that has Justice Hill and Gus Edwards as their running back, and Zay Flowers is their best wide receiver, who's a rookie wide receiver. And they still are 12-3. Lamar is the biggest success on that team. Every year they lead the league in rush yards, rush attempts, yards per game, all that stuff. This year they've taken a step back, but the reason their rushing offense has been the best in the league is because of the fact that Lamar, on a handoff, whether it be a play action, whether it be a draw, or whether it just be a simple handoff, he always has the factor that he could take the ball himself and run, and that's why these running backs and Gus Edwards at one point, had like 2 touchdowns a game for 6 straight games. And he has 15 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, because Lamar is such a threat on his feet that these defenses can't, they're playing for 2 people. That's a game changer. That's someone who changes the game. He changes the way the defense looks by just simply holding the ball in his hands. And a lot of these other players don't do that. Brock Purdy isn't a game changer. He's someone who makes the right reads. He's someone who can get the ball in the right place, and he's very good at it. And I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is an exceptional quarterback this year. And same thing for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is another definition of a game changer. He's someone who can, move the ball on his feet, move it with his hands. He's someone who makes the big plays at the right times. But with that being said, he also has 17 turnovers this year, which is the most by, or second, I'm pretty sure it's Josh Allen and him, which is a lot. So focusing on that, you want to argue whether or not the interceptions and the fumbles should count. I think the definition for the Eagles offense has been sustainability. Their EPA on defense is negative 30.9, and Lamar has still put out a winning record. They're still a very good team. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. And with the defense that has been drastically worse than it was last year, Jalen has had an exceptional year. So that's why I think his case for MVP is very strong. He set a record. He's still playing very, very good. Although the fact that he has multiple almost 20 turnovers this year, the defense has been abysmal and they've been able to go out and win. And then my last case for what would be Tua's case is he's just middle of the pack. The Dolphins are neck and neck with Josh Allen and the Bills in EPA when it comes to defense and offense. They're pretty much the same. It's 82.5 to 83.2 for offense, and then 66.2 to 66.3 for defense. But Tua is not a game manager or game changer. I think Tyreek is a game changer in the fact that Tua can change the game with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. A simple, good, well-placed slant, well-placed deep ball, which Tua does the best. He always is the best when it comes to crossing routes and deep sideline throws. I think that's why Tua is an MVP. I mean, he leads the league in pretty much every statistical passing category, like I said. And that offense has been the best in the NFL when it comes down to a majority of the major stats in passing. And Raheem Mostert has 20 touchdowns. But again, there's players on the team that you could argue are taking up a lot of the slack, like Raheem, like McCaffrey. And then for the Eagles, obviously, Jalen Hurts has played exceptional, but the fact that DeAndre Swift is, pretty much one of, if not the most consistent runners behind the best offensive line with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. The Ravens don't have that, and I think that's why Lamar is MVP. So let's try a little away from that. Obviously, I got a little into it with the talk about Lamar, one of my favorite quarterbacks. But let's focus on some of the other ones, which is like Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. And I think Offensive Player of the Year is pretty obvious at this point. I think if Hill has to be left out if he gets 2,000 yards, I think Tyreek Hill is a clear Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, he pretty much, he's pretty much going to have the most receiving yards. It's really, really hard. He leads the NFL in 20-yard receptions, 40-yard receptions, and yards after catch. He creates most separation in the league per route. It's one of those things where there's no one really close this year. You could argue it could be McCaffrey, but I think Tyreek, at what he's done in his position, is better than what McCaffrey is doing in his position. I don't think McCaffrey is not a close second. I think he's very close, and I think if McCaffrey, winds up playing a strong next two games, maybe getting 25 touchdowns, I think it'll be pretty hard at that point to argue, unless Tyreek winds up getting 1,900 yards, that Tyreek should win it. Tyreek obviously missed a game, and then he came back and he only had 100 yards receiving. McCaffrey had 100 yards plus or 125 yards plus and a touchdown. So it's neck and neck with them kind of in terms of whether or not they're going to win. But I think Tyreek up to this point is the clear winner for Offensive Player of the Year. And then for Defensive Player of the Year, another Steelers player, or player that I love is TJ Watt. TJ Watt, obviously, I think Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett leads the league in betting odds. But I mean, TJ Watt is a no-brainer for me. He leads the league in sacks, he leads the league in pressures, and it's not even close between pressures, QB hits, QB hurries, yards per loss, tackles for loss. He leads the league in every single statistic when it comes to that. Obviously, the Steelers defense hasn't been as good as the Browns, so I think that's a big comparison that you want to make in terms of the defensive unit. The Steelers defensive unit isn't anywhere close to the Browns, and I think that's why Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons might have a leg up at this point. But if we're looking at strictly Defensive Player of the Year, which we're removing, MVP, which is a different award, I think it's TJ Watt. He's unblockable. He, attacks the edge with probably the fastest edge rusher I've ever seen. I think the pocket presence with the Steelers and TJ Watt is different. So I think TJ Watt deserves that. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think at one point it could have been Rashee Rice, with the fact that Shrewd, stopped playing, and the fact that Rashee Rice has been playing extremely well, and Tank Dell obviously is an exceptional player, but CJ Stroud is nothing short of unbelievable this season. He's only been sacked 26 times. He's pretty much one of, if not the best rookies in the entire league right now. I think one of the things that is so strong about his case is he was almost up for MVP at one point, with the way that he was playing. He pretty much didn't have a turnover, and he had like 20 touchdowns. He was playing. The Texans were like 6-3. They were looking really, really good. I think it's pretty much his to lose, and he's not going to lose it. I don't think even if he plays another game, he will lose it. He's been out for 2 weeks now, but I don't think anyone's close. Obviously, I said Rashee Rice, but it's CJ Stroud has been played so exceptional in those 11 games that it's kind of hard to argue that he won't win it just with the. I think he could have also set a lot of records if he wound up continuing to play. And he one of the few quarterbacks that's as a rookie has over 100 passer rating, and also has first in explosive plays and second in passing yards. And then for defensive rookie of the year, this was something that was close for me, just because it's hard for me to. Defensive rookie of the year is a difficult award. You want to separate stats at this point from what he's doing, especially with so many defensive players for the defensive player of the year. It's easy to look at when it comes down to stats. For rookie of the year, they usually don't have the stats that are so strong, such as the defensive player of the year. Like example, TJ Watt has 17.5 sacks. He leads the league in sacks. He leads the league in all those categories. No one really leads the league in anything as a rookie or has strong enough stats to prove. But I think Jalen Carter or Devon Witherspoon for the Seahawks. I can't believe the Eagles got Jalen Carter at number 9. He's being double teamed at a percent of 58, and he has a pass rush win rate of 25%, which is fourth among defensive tackles in the NFL as a rookie. I think he's almost an all-pro talent, Jalen Carter. He's extremely strong on defense. He absorbs people. He's very good at stopping the run and pass rushing, especially as a defensive tackle. He's one of those players that doesn't remind you of Aaron Donald, but the way he's built and the way he plays is very strong, very rough, very much like Aaron Donald, but stats not the same. With that being said, I think Devon Witherspoon had a very good coverage season. I think he had a very strong tackling season. I think Jalen Carter, though, had a very strong season. I think Devon Witherspoon had at times he got benched, and he's lacked off in coverage. But he is one of the better rookies on the defensive side of the ball. But I think Jalen Carter pretty much is defensive rookie of the year up to this point. And that's there's coach of the year. I think that'll pretty much go to Mike McDaniels or John Harbaugh or Kyle Shanahan. I don't know. It's kind of a hard decision. I think at one point, if the Texans wound up winning 10 games, I thought DeMeco Ryans could have won it. But they're not looking too good right now. With all that being said, Lamar deserves MVP. I think that's pretty much the biggest takeaway I wanted to get in this video is Lamar has a very strong case for MVP, and I would love to see him win it, because he's just an exceptional player. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys can tune in next Wednesday. Obviously, today is Thursday. I apologize for the lateness. I did not remember, but I did slack in terms of my posting yesterday. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and hope you guys can tune in next Wednesday. Thank you.